The case against Sean Diddy Combs, well, I guess which case are we talking about is the main question. That's what we're going to talk about here, and we're going to touch on several different aspects, including the possible connection to the murder of Tupac, about the shooting in the nightclub in 1999, and other aspects. Robin Dreeke, retired FBI Special Agent Chief of the Counterintelligence Behavioral Analysis Program, joining us. I want to ask you this question first, even before we get into Tupac, because there was some really interesting commentary made in this last week by Suge Knight, who has a podcast from prison, which is, I find, kind of entertaining. And Suge Knight's, he's always been a very, boisterous individual, over the top on a lot of the things he's saying. But he made an interesting allegation the other day, and my question about it was logistics. Does this ever happen? He, in his conjecture, was talking about Jennifer Lopez and Ben Affleck, and they're, as far as we know, getting a divorce or separating. And he was suggesting that maybe the FBI went to Ben Affleck and showed him some video that was maybe obtained in one of the homes of Diddy from J-Lo back in the late 90s, early 2000s, that maybe implicated her in some things that he didn't want anything to do with. And that may have been the catalyst for that divorce. Now, we're not an entertainment, celebrity show, but that maybe pause and wonder, does the FBI ever go to his spouse and say, you might want to be aware of this, of what's going on, because there might be something coming down on your significant other soon?
So, if anyone were to ever do that, and we were just talking on the other case about in the Karen Reed case about the kind of internal investigation that goes on and internal to law
Yeah.
enforcement. If anyone ever did that inside the FBI, they'd have an Office of Professional Responsibility (OPR) slapped on them in 5 seconds.
Yeah.
No, we
Okay.
don't do that. I don't. So anytime you start dealing with high profile individuals, whether it be celebrities, politicians, or something like that, the amount of approval levels you have to go through to get authorization to conduct an interview are really high,
Mhm.
because the potential public impact and press and all that, the level of authority to do something like that is generally pretty high. So they, in other words, if you're going to interview a high level, high profile, once a high level, high profile celebrity, sending someone, a typical agent that's only got maybe a couple years in the bureau, out on an interview or an out to show someone in a video. First of all, the concept of inserting yourself into a relationship for the FBI, why?
Yeah.
It's just not done. First of all, you don't have the time or bandwidth because you already have. So my typical day, work in the world of counterintelligence and espionage, I had a stack of cases like this high.
Hmm.
And if I got to like this much on a given day, that's a great day. I once worked for a boss that said, "Hey, you got three piles of work. You got the ones that if I don't do this, I'm going to go to jail. I got the ones that if I don't do this, I'm going to get fired. And I got the ones I got to do this or I'm going to get in trouble."
Hmm.
And every day you reshuffle those three piles. And that's all you did every day. You constantly triaging and assessing your bandwidth that day. So to be able to take time away from legitimate investigations that are protecting the national security of the United States and the public safety to go insert yourself into someone's personal relationship? No,
No, no.
no.
The
And
only,
then it's
yeah.
so say you had some, I won't use the term lightly, some moron that decides to do that. The level of authority you would need to do that would be really, really high. And
Mhm.
then justifying that action would be, how do you justify, you wouldn't be able to justify that action. And so say then you blow all that off. I'm some rogue agent that decides to blow off policy, blow off all my investigation, do all these things, and I go do it anyway. The likelihood of one of these celebrities coming back and calling the local FBI office and diming you out is extremely high. And then you're thrown in the same situation. So the
Mhm.
likelihood of that exceptionally low.
So Suge is full of shit. It's
I
basically,
think so.
yeah. I would guess that as well. I was just curious because I'm like, we're having the discussion on Murder in the Morning the other day, and I was like, I don't know the answer to that. My guess is probably no, but I gotta ask Robin about this because I just don't know the answer to that. The investigation
Highly
continuing on.
improbable.
Yeah, okay, that makes more sense. Tupac Shakur's family has now hired attorneys to investigate the allegations against Sean Diddy Combs for his 1996 murder. Of course, Dwayne Keefe D is going to be going to trial for that. But the allegations are that Diddy had a hit out, $1 million to assassinate Tupac. And that's always been a rumor for like since 1996. But we're now learning through some documents 77 times Diddy's name is mentioned in court documents from Keefe D from way back in the day. This is something that he had talked about prior to being investigated. This was prior to him being arrested and charged with anything. This is a document that was sitting there and not looked at until now, and now it's coming to light. What does that say about this case? That was there, is there some connection here? I mean, 77 times having your name mentioned in a murder for hire case seems a little bit like maybe there's something there.
So a lot of smoke.
Okay.
And what they're saying is they're seeing if there's fire. And what's smoke? Smoke is a behavior arc, and you're
Hmm.
seeing a pattern of of accused behavior. And so what they're going to be doing in the investigation is there any data points to back up the accused behavior, and what was the trigger point that sent it over to go from threats to actual action?
Hmm.
And so that's what the investigation is going to show. And so I mean, there's so much smoke all over the place here. And I think that's the challenge for not just this aspect of the case, but every single aspect of the case. There's such a large network of people and concentric circles of protection around him. It's hard to, and so say he's in the middle, and you have these concentric circles with access to Diddy, and each of them are covering different things, wanting to stay in good with Diddy. So you got smoke here, smoke here, smoke here. And what investigators are trying to do is they're trying to find out of all this smoke, where's their actual fire?
Hmm.
Where's actually something tangible that's not an insinuation? Where's something that's not an exaggeration? Where's something that actually get a data point where they can actually say this is a tangible bit of real evidence that can lead us down this road? And they're also going to go for motive, actions, behaviors. And so I think we're seeing all that. I think we see the behavior arcs. I think we're probably going to see, if we haven't already, the triggering events that cause the behavior. What they're really searching for is how much hard evidence do they have that can justify it all.
I mean, it's a very interesting case. It's something I've always been fascinated with since it happened in '96. And it gets a lot of attention because people want to talk about it. It's well-known individuals, and it was, a very big impact on the music world and society at the time. But Diddy's under investigation, and there's a grand jury convened into the sex trafficking allegations against him.
That's a big one for me.
Is the FBI or the Homeland Security actually who's doing the investigation? When you hear other things like this popping up and the allegations of possibly being involved with Tupac, is that something that they're going to kind of fold into this as well, or is this just more conjecture in the public going maybe this is part of it, or is this something that they would literally well, we got to go down this road too and see if there's something here.
So again, a lot of conjecture here because I just don't know.
Yeah,
But out of all the things that they're investigating right now, still to me, the most important thing is the sex trafficking, potentially child trafficking,
yeah. Hmm.
because that is something that could still be impacting a lot of people
Sure,
now.
sure.
What they're what I would be doing if I was investigating this, and I have all these potential murder charges in here as well, I would be putting that aside and holding it right here because you don't want to charge someone with that without having the investigation over here ready to go. Because what'll happen is if you charge someone here, anyone that might be circled around that investigation might also be involved over here, and you're going to get them to shut up and lawyer up.
Hmm.
And you don't want to have that happen until this is all flushed out over here on the child sex trafficking side, because that's the one that I think is going to have the massive tendrils going out.
Hmm.
I think the straight charges going forward with potential murder for hire and things like that are going to have a more centralized well, I'm using my little thing, a more centralized impact right here
Okay.
with fewer victims involved than
Yeah.
potentiality over here with all the sex trafficking. So if I was the investigator, and this is gonna be multiple coordinations as well going on, which also takes time. So they're probably dealing with one assistant U.S. attorney on this, and they're trying to deconflict a lot of people, doing a lot of investigation with a lot of leads and a lot of information coming in as they're trying to organize and get straight what they're going to do because they don't want one investigation's outcome or charges to negatively impact the other one. So they're probably triaging. They're saying what do we have more bandwidth for? Because this is also taking a huge amount of bandwidth, meaning people and resources to do this investigation, to follow up on these leads, to serve subpoenas, to collect all the evidence, to analyze all the evidence, to to search all the social media platforms, to get on the dark web, to find out all the potential victims on one side. See what I mean? There's so many moving parts that requires a lot of people to do that kind of work. And if you have a small handful of investigators taking in all of this, because every time a new charge comes in or a new allegation or something new or hits the social media, they're going to run that down.
Mhm.
And every time one celebrity says something, even from the jailhouse, well, now they're going to look at this one guy in a jail. They're going to look at every single communication he's had for this entire period of time with everyone
Yeah.
to see if there's fire behind that smoke. And that takes even more resources there. It's going to draw it away from here. So you see, this is why
Yeah.
these things take time because they run everything down to truth.
And we're talking almost a 30-year period, of information. I mean, that which
I
is,
can't imagine.
yeah.
It's overwhelming.
Yeah. How does the Department of Homeland Security and also when you're calling in witnesses and such with the grand jury investigation that's been impaneled here, how do they secure the safety of some of these witnesses? Because we know, I mean, if we're to believe some of these things and even some of the claims that Diddy has said himself of having people killed, of that being, I mean, imminent threat to if someone's gonna snitch, or talk about their knowledge of what he may or may not have been involved in. That's got to be a scary prospect for a lot of people because he's still out there, he's free, he's still got a lot of money and probably a lot of connections. I'd imagine there's a lot of influence and pressure that don't go and talk if you want to be okay or your family to be okay. How do they basically ensure the security of people that they want to get information from in a case like this, if in fact that could be going on?
That's a great question too. So Homeland Security, I'm not quite sure because their investigative arm and them conducting investigation cases is relatively new. They didn't exist when I went in the
Sure.
bureau. So let's just assume it's an FBI only case, and because it's all federal law enforcement regardless.
Yeah.
That's a rough question because to start involving witness protection, you're going to start involving the Federal Marshal Service,
Hmm.
and they have limited resources and a limited ability to do this. And so these are really high level cases. So in order to totally protect someone, and you're going to have to do relocation. You're going to have to do the whole fake name thing. You're going to have to do the witness protection program if they're going to be that high, and they think and they can assess the threat against them physically is that high. That's pretty rare for them to do that.
Yeah.
Most of the time, when you're working with witnesses, potential witnesses, you let them know up front that, hey, I can protect you. I'll do the best I can. We're not going to leak your name. We're not going to do all these things. And we ask you not to do the same because of all these potential impacts. If that doesn't scare the witness away, you might be okay. That's also why this is also a challenging case because the fear factor of this blowback, the fear factor of leakage, the fear factor of how they could. This is why it hasn't happened before.
Hmm.
This is why his entire network
Yeah.
hasn't dimed him out before. And this is why people are starting to feel empowered now because there's safety that we feel psychologically in groups, groupthink. And so if you have one or two people that are now voicing off, feeling safe, they feel safety in numbers. I can jump to and do the righteous thing,
Hmm.
but I'll be safe in a group. Reality wise, are they safe in a group? Yes ish.
Hmm.
Only because now that there's more attention on them, there's more eyes looking at them. If anything happens to them, they're automatically going to be looking at that guy because he probably took him out. So,
Sure.
but before that happened, before there's a group thing going on for safety, an individual coming forward, there's a lot of fear factor going on. So, there's actually not, that's a long answer, I know,
Yeah.
for saying probably not a lot of real things they're going to be doing for them to protect them,
Hmm.
except anonymity. And
Yeah.
that's what we're really good at is not leaking stuff. I mean, these cases become extremely close held. I mean, I worked side by side with people doing high level investigations that I had no idea what they were doing. I mean, here's a great example from the espionage side.
Hmm.
If anyone's ever remembered the case of what's called ghost stories, the 10 Russian illegals,
Hmm.
these are the ones that the Russians had embedded in the country. That was the Anna Chapman, the one that was in DC, and these are the Russian illegal
Yeah.
families that were
Yeah.
here infiltrating. I sat in the unit, and one of my great friends worked that case from headquarters. I was on the behavioral team. I strategized the behavior interview of one of the families. I had no idea who the other ones were. I had no idea who was even on. I wasn't even read into that case, even though I was on the headquarters unit doing that investigation for a good while.
Hmm.
Because those things at that kind of level, when lives are on the line, they become extremely, really well and close held. So likelihood in this case, same thing.
Yeah. Can a witness that they really want to talk to, can they decline in something like this? So with a
Yes.
grand jury, they can say, I don't want nothing. Can they be forced or compelled to testify in if they really
So
have
if
some
there's
information?
yeah, so again, I'm not super familiar with grand juries. I didn't deal with grand juries a
Yep.
lot, but if they're subpoenaed, yes, they're compelled to do
Hmm.
so. But protection of them, boy, that gets
Yeah.
really sticky, doesn't it?
That's got to get scary, especially in something like this. But again, I see the strength in numbers, and that's why we've been hearing more and more and
Yeah,
more. I'm wondering if an arrest is made, if he is ever charged, what kind of a dam breaking effect that's going to be of many more people coming forward because they feel more secure with him being
probably.
behind bars.
So an interesting thing too that really made me think here. I didn't deal with them a lot, but I've been dealing with it a lot just because I know that they've been deployed on the Trump shooting.
Yeah.
And that is victim assistance programs. So all law enforcement agencies, at least most, and definitely the Bureau at federal level, has victim assistance programs. And what those victim assistance programs are is people that have been victimized or part of this process. They are given a lot of resources. They're kind of hand walk through the entire process to give them that feel of safety and security. And a lot of times, eh, like if local law enforcement knows that a witness is in the area, they'll be doing more drive-bys by the house. They'll be on surveillance potentially. So there's a level of security they're given. They're not like assigned a security detail
Yeah.
necessarily, but they're given more notice. They're given higher alerts. If there's now, granted, if there's an actual threat that's known or intelligence comes in that someone's under threat, yeah, then there'll be a protective details put on them as well for a period of time. So it kind of goes on a person by person basis.
Hey, thanks for checking out the video. Be sure to follow us wherever you download podcasts, and especially Apple Podcasts, where you can get advanced episode and premium content on our premium channel right there. Also, be sure to follow us on social media so you don't miss any breaking updates on the stories that matter to you most. We're on TikTok, X, Instagram, Facebook. Just search Hidden Killers Podcast with Tony Brueski, and you'll find us right there. Again, thanks for watching.